Hey guys, and welcome back to it now for something a little bit different, episode 53. Guys, today I'm proud to announce I'm going to be talking about a little film from 1961 called Cash on Demand. This is a great little crime thriller, and we have in our two leads Peter Cushing and the talented Mr. Andre Morel. This is a really cool film. And just bear with me here for a second, guys, because I'm going to get into it in just a second. A couple things before I start. As you can tell, guys, it's Thursday. I was supposed to have this out on Sunday for you, but I'm running a little bit behind. So, yeah, I'm running a little behind today. I am going to forego my normal what I've watched recently because I'm a little bit on a timeline and I do want to get this out to you guys. So that's number one. And then number two, guys, is I'm going to try something a little bit different today. I'm going to give you the plot synopsis, and I'm going to go into detail, but I'm not going to do the normal um, beat per beat script breakdown. Normally, when I'm on my own doing these solo runs, I do that, and part of the reason I've done that in the past is A, I enjoy it, um, but B, I I do it because I don't have other people to bounce off when I'm doing these solo runs, and I'm doing it by myself. Um, but I'm not sure if that's the best way to go or not. I'm a little bit over a year into doing this, and like I said, this is episode 53, but I'm still trying to figure out what's the best way to go about doing the show. And I'm also always looking for ways to tweak it and improve it in different ways. I've been very lucky. I've had a very loyal following of people that have been very supportive of the show since day one. Troy and Brad, for example, from Not a Bomb, those guys have since literally like within a month of doing this, I became friends with them and they've always been super supportive and a lot of other people. And I've had a lot of feedback and 99% of it's been positive. Um, Most people love what I'm doing. A couple of people I've talked to mentioned the idea of possibly instead of doing, like I said, the beat by beat script breakdown, just give a synopsis, even if it's a detailed one instead of doing the beat by beat script breakdown. So I'm going to go ahead and try that today. Like I said, I'm not going to go into complete and total detail, um, but I am going to give you a little bit more of an, I'm going to try to give you a little bit more of an encapsulated breakdown instead of literally page by page, beat by beat script breakdown. So we're going to try it out. When you guys watch the video, if you get an opportunity, you can write me in at and now for something different one altogether at gmail.com, or you could reach out to me on Facebook. Let me know what you think. Like I said, we're going to call it a little bit of an experiment and see how it plays out. So those are a couple things I wanted to touch bases with you before I get started. This Sunday, we'll be talking about the newest Spotlight episode with Justin and Jose, and we'll be continuing our exploration of Jeff Bridges and his films as we talk about 8 Million Ways to Die. So that's something to look forward to for Sunday. Next week, I'll be talking about the film by Frank Capra, his last feature film, actually, A Pocket Full of Miracles. And then the following week, I'll be discussing the 2024 adaptation of The Count of Monte Cristo. So these are all things to look forward to on the horizon. So I hope you guys will be there for the ride and you're enjoying the content. So with all that said, I know that was a mouthful, um, I'm going to get into the actual film. Like I said, the film is called Cash on Demand. It's a thriller. Basically, this film was produced by the company Hammer Films. Now, Hammer Films is a company that's been around since 1934, guys, and they're known for mostly doing horror stuff, but surprisingly, they've done a lot of other stuff, and this is a prime example of that. They put out a lot of sci-fi, film noir, and a ton of television, and they have a really rich history. Um, and they're definitely worth looking into. I could probably talk an hour just about Hammer Films, but I won't. There have been some books written about the company. Um, they've really done some really interesting things in the world of film and in particular genre film. So definitely look into a lot of their stuff. They produced this film, and at the time, it was only done for £37,000, which isn't a lot of money, guys. Like I said, it came out in '61. It was directed by a guy named Quentin Lawrence. Now, Quentin was mostly known for television and a handful of films. Just hang on for a second while I pull up his page here, because of course I got my cheat sheet, guys. Um, he's done stuff like the TV movie The Importance of Being Earnest in '55, another TV show, The Strange World of Planet X in '56, The Gentle Killers in '57, the feature film The Crawling Eye in '58, um, the movie Playback, uh, and then in '63 We Shall See. And here's one for you: 1970, a show called Catweasel. Okay, it's an interesting title, right? Um, what makes Mr. Quentin Lawrence, our director, so interesting, though, is besides just being a filmmaker and a producer, um, he actually went to school to be a physicist, and he's actually holds several patents. Two interesting ones in particular. He has a patent for improvements in both nuclear reactor control technology and television and imaging and transmission equipment. So he's not just a filmmaker and a producer, but he's also got that mindset for science and stuff like that. Also, he worked on the Manhattan Project after working and improving on radar equipment in World War II in the UK. He came over to Oak Ridge, Tennessee, where he worked on the Manhattan Project, which of course led to the development of the first atomic bombs. So he has a little bit of an interesting career. Um, so that's a little bit about our director. When we get into the cinematography, we have a guy named Artur Grant. Excuse me, guys. Now, Artur's worked on a ton of stuff, um, and he's one of these guys that was a contracted guy for Hammer Films. Um, he's probably one of their more prolific cinematographers, and he actually worked at the company from 1957 to 1972. Um, this guy has a rich history of working on films like a film called Rhinox, Rynox, probably pronouncing that one wrong, guys, which came out in 1931. Heaven is Around the Corner in 1944. The Brave Don't Cry in '52. The Abominable Snowman in '57. The Son of Robin Hood in '58. The Curse of the Werewolf in 1961. The Pirates of Bloodwater in '62. The Damned in '62. Paranoiac. The Tomb of Ligeia in '64. Dog hair, guys. The dangers of owning a collie. They shed a lot, and a lot of it ends up in the beard. Quartermass in the Pit in '67. Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed in '69. Demons of the Mind in '72, and a bunch of other stuff. I'm not going to get into his entire resume. When we get into our editing department, we have a guy named Eric Boyd Perkins. He's been doing stuff like Lady of Vengeance in '57, The Trouble with Eve in 1960, The Two Faces of Dr. Jekyll in 1960, Gorgo in 1961, also The Pirates of Blood River in '62, Night Creatures in '62, The Gorgon, The Wicker Man, here you go, in '73, stuff like the movie Clue in '85, For Your Eyes Only in '81. So, he has a pretty interesting filmography there when we get into that. Excuse me, guys. Oh, man. The dangers of working at a school is you come in contact with little germ factories, guys. And I feel like I'm always fighting off some sort of cold or cough, unfortunately. It's the story of my life. When we get to our music department, we have our composer, who is a guy named Wilfred Josephs. Now, Wilfred's worked on stuff like 24 Hours to Kill in 1965, The Deadly Bees in '66, Cry of the Banshee in 1970, The Uncanny in '77, Uh, Die, Die, My Darling in 1965. Now, there's an interesting title for you. And Death in the Sky Above in 61. So that's our composer. And that talks a little bit about our behind the scenes people. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about our cast members. Um, our lead role, we have Peter Cushing playing the role of Harry Fordyce. He's a bank manager. He has a whole Ebenezer Scrooge vibe going on, guys, and I'll go into that a little bit later when I tell you my thoughts on the film. Uh, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a brief bio. And again, it's not going to be super detailed, but just a brief bio on our man, Peter Cushing. So, at an early age, Peter was attracted to acting, inspired by his favorite aunt, who was a stage actor. And while in school, pushing pursued his interest in acting, um, and and also drawing, a talent he would put to good use later on in his first job as a government surveyor. So interesting enough. When he got into the high school level, he dabbled in local theater. And then when he graduated in 1939, he made his move to Hollywood. He made his debut film in 1939, believe it or not, and of all films, The Man in the Iron Mask. Little Mr. Dumas there for you, little Alexander Dumas. I love that book as well as the rest of his novels. Now, this guy's been in a shit ton of stuff, guys. I think a lot of you guys might know him for his Hammer film stuff, but he's also been in stuff like Star Wars. He's been in stuff like Sherlock Holmes, Madhouse in '74, House of the Long Shadows in '83, um, The Mummy in 1959, The Brides of Dracula, Horror of Dracula, The Curse of Frankenstein. He's one of these versatile actors that can just pretty much become the character, and he never ceases to amaze me with his range. Um, and that's nothing more than what you could want in a great actor. And Peter Cushing was one of those guys. He was just one of those super talented guys that could do it all. His last film was in '86, and it was called The Biggles Adventures in Time. Um, I'm trying to read my own chicken scratch, but I think I got that right. Biggles Adventures in Time, which I watched recently, which is a fun little time travel movie. And at some point, I might actually cover it. Just bear with me for a second, guys. I got to get a little sip of water here because my throat is super dry. Uh, all right. Now, our other lead actor in this is Andre Morel, and I will admit to saying I've never seen Andre Morel in any of his other films. But he is playing the role of Colonel Gore Hepburn. Um, he's done a wide range of stuff like Pride and Prejudice in 1938, 13 Men and a Gun also in '38, The Merchant of Venice, which came out in '47, which is a TV movie, Against the Wind in '48, Stage Fright in 1950, 7 Days to Noon also in 1950, The Man Who Never Was in 1956, Quartermass in the Pit, a miniseries which came out between '58 and '59, Hound of the Baskervilles, which also came out in '59, Ben-Hur, uh, Dark of the Sun. He was in Barry Lyndon, believe it or not. And in '78, he did the voice of the animated Lord of the Rings. He played the role of Elrond. So he's done a bunch of stuff. Also in '78, he did The Great Train Robbery. So he's done a bunch of different films. Playing next here, we have character Richard Vernon, who's playing the role of Pearson. He's an assistant bank manager, and he's done a bunch of stuff as well, guys. He's been in stuff like Indiscreet in 1958, Sapphire in '59, The Heart of a Man in 1959, Village of the Damned in 1960, the Avengers TV show in '62, the movie Goldfinger in '64, The Tomb of Ligeia in '64, Goodbye, Mr. Chips in '69. Another one of these guys that's a day player. He's popped up in a bunch of different films, a bunch of different television shows. Um, Next, we have the actor Barry Lowe. He's playing Peter Harville, a young bank teller. Um, he's been in stuff like The Crimson Pirate, They Can't Hang Me, The Steel Bayonet, Cleopatra, Hands of the Ripper, um, Treasure Island, the TV movie in '95. A bunch of different stuff. Um, and that's like a lot of your main characters here. I mean, there are other characters in the film, guys, and I'm not going to get into everybody's filmography, just because I don't think it's overly important. Primarily, the film is between Peter Cushing's character, who's Harry Fordyce, or Harry Fordyce. I'm probably getting that last name. I'm always bad with these last names, guys. Who's playing the bank manager, and Andre Morel, who's playing Colonel Gore Hepburn. Um, it's a lot of back and forth between them. The rest of the cast, while they do show up, um, for the most part, it's not really about them for the most part. I mean, they play a part, but anyway, I'll get into it, and I'll get into the script now a little bit and tell you my thoughts. So basically, the movie takes place around Christmas time. We open up the film, and outside in the streets, we see a Santa Claus, and he's ringing his bell, trying to raise money for charity. A lady drops some money in, and the camera pans, and we see this empty bank, and it pans throughout the entire bank from the beginning of the bank all the way to the basement and the vault. And from there, we are introduced to the assistant manager, who is played by Richard Vernon. He's the character's name is Pearson, and Pearson's opening up the bank and getting ready for the big day. So he opens up the doors, and the employees start to trickle in, and we're introduced to some of the employees. We're introduced to Barry Lowe's character, Peter Harville, who, like I said, is a bank teller. We're also introduced to two women that are secretaries, um, and he's getting ready for the day. Then from there, Peter Cushing's character comes in, Harry Fordyce, and Harry Fordyce, right from the very get-go, he's very stiff and very strict and very stringent. And he walks in, and everyone's attitude changes. Everyone was lighthearted and happy, and they're talking about this party they're going to have to celebrate the holidays later that evening, and they're joking about we know who's not going to show up, and right from the get-go, when Harry's character walked in, Peter Cushing walks in, he's just, like I said, he's just that boss that just takes things way too seriously. The bank is his life. Right off the get-go, he criticizes pretty much everyone. He criticizes one of the secretaries for having too much festive stuff on her desk. She has Christmas cards and decorations on her desks, and he talks about how that's unprofessional. And then he proceeds to do a walkthrough on the main floor of the bank, and he notices that some of the pencils are down to the nub. And then, he complains to our assistant bank manager, Richard Vernon Pearson, the assistant bank manager. He's complaining about, how come this is not professional? What's going on, Pearson? How come you're allowing these pencils to be this small and unsharpened? He's like, do I have to do everything? And right off the get-go, um, we see some tension between the Harry Fordyce character played by Peter Cushing and Richard Vernon, the assistant bank manager. From there, he goes to his office and he calls in one of the employees, Peter Harville, the bank teller, played by Barry Lowe. He proceeds to lecture Peter because apparently earlier in the week, Peter was short in his bank till. And he said, what's going on here? You were short in your bank till. And Peter defends himself. And he's like, yes, sir, it was a very busy day. I made a mistake and we were $10 short. Later on, the person I accidentally gave the money to came back and he basically gave the money back. It was just a stupid mistake, and basically, he's apologizing. But Peter Cushing's character, Harry Fordyce, he's saying, no, that's not acceptable. This is not the way things are. And who signed off on this? Because when you closed your bank out, the records showed that you were short, and then the money was put back later on. How do I know that you weren't stealing? And then when you got caught, you just put the money back. So it's like this big tension between him and Peter Harville, the bank teller's character, right off the get-go. And then he's saying, and it looks like somebody signed off on this. Who could possibly have signed off on this? And he's like grilling this poor guy, this character of Peter. And Peter's like, who signed off? And only two people could have signed off on it, and you know exactly who signed off on it. And of course, the person that signed off on it ends up being the assistant bank manager, Pearson. Pearson was the guy he was just yelling at for not staying on top of properly stocking pencils and making sure they were sharpened. So the next thing you know, he dismisses Peter. He sends in for Pearson and basically yells at Pearson and basically says, how could you sign off on that? How unprofessional is that? You're forging records, and Pearson again says, hey, listen, it was a mistake. The, the kid made a mistake. And guess what? The mistake was corrected. And they also get into a little verbal duel. Basically, Pearson's like, hey, you've never had respect for me since I've been here. We've never gotten along very well, no matter what I do. He's like, if this is the way things are going to be, can you please approve my transfer to another bank within the chain of banks? And of course, well, most people would think that would be a reasonable request if you're not getting along with a fellow coworker or even a boss. If it's a big company, Mr. Harry Fordyce, Peter Cushing's character, automatically is like, well, with the kind of mistakes you've made, I don't know how I can possibly recommend you. If anything, I could possibly think about letting you go. So this, of course, sets off Pearson. He's like, you would think about letting me go. I've been with this company for over 11 years. And it becomes, again, another verbal duelage between the Harry Fordyce character played by Peter Cushing and the assistant banker Pearson played by Richard Vernon. Again, what we're doing here early on is we're establishing exactly what kind of character Peter Cushing is, and that's this very stiff, stringent, very strict, very detached character. He's just one of those guys. Maybe he takes his job a little too seriously. So he dismisses Pearson. A short while later, outside, we see a car pull up, and out steps our co-lead here, Mr. Andre Morel, Mr. Colonel Gore Hepburn. He's driving this nice little sports car, and he parks in a spot that says 20 minutes or less. So he goes into the bank. He wants to speak with the bank manager. He says, Mr. Harry Fordyce, I'm here to speak with him. I'm with the insurance company for the bank. And he's shown in to talk to Harry. At first, Harry doesn't want anything to do with him or really talk to him, but he realizes who he is and he kind of has to take this, appointment because it's unexpected. He's shown in and he's like, I'm here sent from the main office from the insurance company to make sure everything's on the up and up and everything is going correctly. Pearson shows him in. Shortly thereafter, they dismiss Pearson. They have a little conversation about what he's going to be doing in this inspection, checking different things. A couple minutes into the conversation, there's a phone call, and Harry answers the phone. And in the phone, he hears his son crying and his wife's voice, and his wife saying, just do whatever he wants. Do whatever he wants. He said he's going to kill me and your son. So all of a sudden, things take this dramatic turn. And effectively from here, it turns into this kind of this cat and mouse thriller. And Mr. Colonel Gore Hepburn, like I said, played by the Andre Morel, and played quite well, I will say. He basically tells him, "You're going to follow my instructions. I'm going to give you a set of instructions, and the game plan is to be out of here in 50 minutes." So he's like, "I'm not going to take up much of your time, but yes, I'm here to rob the vault. But you're going to follow my instructions explicitly. And if you don't, your wife and child are going to be killed. So you're going to play along." He goes to the window and he lights a cigarette, and we find out that's him signaling to the guy outside, his accomplices, if you will. Um, Basically, from what happens from here, guys, is he sends in Pearson and he tells Pearson to get luggage from his car. And Pearson brings in this luggage, and then he dismisses Pearson again, and they empty out the luggage. Effectively, from there, they go down to the bank vault, but the bank vault needs two keys. So they have Pearson walk them down to the bank. They unlock the vault, and they ask Pearson for his key. Now, Pearson is a little bit surprised by this because normally you're not supposed to do that, but Mr. Colonel Gore Hepburn promises him this is just something they're doing because it's part of the inspection process, and he doesn't need to be down here for this. Um, so they dismiss Pearson. Pearson is halfway up the stairs, and basically Harry tells Pearson, he says, "Listen, for the next hour, we're going to be busy down here. We're going to be doing an audit on the vault. So if any customers come in and they're looking to withdraw any large amounts, just let them know that that's not going to be possible for the next hour or so." So Pearson goes back upstairs. Um, they unlock the vault. As soon as he goes upstairs, they go back upstairs into Harry's room, his office, excuse me, and they grab the luggage. The bags are now emptied. They go back downstairs into the vault and they start loading up the bags. They had to obviously wait for Pearson to be out of the way so he wouldn't watch them do this, because obviously this is kind of under wraps for the obvious reasons that his kid and his wife are being held ransom, so obviously he can't let anyone know about this. This has got to be a covert operation. So they empty all the money into the bags. um, Things seem to be going well. They go upstairs, and from there, um, he's like, "Okay, you've done your part. Now you just have one last step, um, Harry." He's like, "This is what's going to happen. I am going to ask for one of your staff members to help me carry the bags out to my car, and then I'm going to leave. And you are not going to say or do anything for at least 1 hour." And he's like, "If you do, excuse me, guys, I will kill your wife and your son. In the meantime, uh, just as a personal insurance, I'm going to bring your wife and son with me, and we're going to drop them off at a certain point, and in an hour, we'll call you and tell you where that is, and then you can pick them up. But if we hear any police sirens or anything going on, just know right outside I have one of my men tucked away, and if you try to signal the police in the meantime, I'm going to kill them." So again, there's just the escalation of tension, guys. So he's helped out by Pearson and one of the bank teller, Peter Harville. They help Mr. Colonel Gore Hepburn, played by Mr. Andre Morel, helped him load up his car and bring his bags out into his car. So effectively, from an audience perspective, we're thinking, okay, this guy's smooth. He just got away with everything. He leaves. The whole time, let me just add that the Mr. Cold, strict, professional, stiff Harry Fordyce, the Peter Cushing character, he's normally very got it together, strict, he's very composed. And throughout this whole time, ever since our robber, Mr. Bank Robber, Mr. Andre Morel, Mr. Gore Hepburn's in the picture, he's been a lot more nervous. You can see on his face he's visibly upset. Um, and everyone in the bank has noticed this. So they help him unload the stuff into his car. He leaves. We think he got away with it. Oh wow, this is messed up. Um, he goes back to his office. Um, he's upset. He's just trying to get it under control, but you can see he's visibly upset. There's a knock on his door. Pearson walks in, and he goes up to him and he says, "What's going on?" And Harry is saying, "What do you mean, Pearson? What do you want? I'm busy right now. I can't have this right now." He's like, "Well, something's definitely going on." He's like, "I called the main office and I told them that Colonel Gore Hepburn was here to do an audit from the insurance company, and they said that that can't be possible because he wasn't in that location. He was a lot further away in a completely different location. So it doesn't make any sense that he could be here." So of course, with that in mind, I became upset and put two and two together and thought something must be going on. Also based on your body language and your behavior, and I called the police. And Harry's like, "You called the police?" "No, you can't call the police." "What do you mean you called the police?" He's like, "I can't believe you don't know what you've done." And basically he continues to lecture him, and then that's when it clicks with Pearson. Pearson goes, "That guy was a bank robber, wasn't he? He robbed the bank." He puts it together just based off of how Peter Cushing's character, Harry Fardis, is reacting. He's like, "He robbed the bank, didn't he?" And you could say at first, Peter Cushing's character, Harry, he's like, "What are you talking about? That's preposterous." And Pearson calls him out. He's like, "Come on, it doesn't make any sense. This guy, when I called the main office, said that he was in a completely different location, nowhere near here. That's the only logical explanation. He robbed the bank." And that's when Peter Cushing's character, Harry, breaks down and he's like, "Yes, he did in fact rob the bank." And he's like, "You don't understand. He has my wife and kid. And he said if I didn't follow his orders, he was going to shoot him. He was going to shoot my wife and kids." So from there, you know, we have a moment of compassion, between these two characters. Pearson sees for the first time, he sees his boss as a human being, and he connects with him and he gets it. And he's like, "Well, I'm really sorry, but I already called the police. I don't know what to do." And he's like, "I can't," obviously, like I said, Peter Cushing's character is very upset. He's like, "Well, you must call them back and tell them it was a mistake." And he's like, "Well, I can't. They're already on their way here." And at that point, police officer walks into the building and he's like, "Hi, yes, I'm Mr. So and so. We received a call that you guys were robbed." And Peter Cushing's character says, "Oh, no, no, no. It was just a mistake for my bank manager. It was a miscommunication. I'm so sorry to have brought you down here. It honestly was just a big dumb mistake, and I take full responsibility for it." And he's like, "A mistake? How do you make that kind of mistake?" And he's like, "It was just an error." And Pearson also plays along with it. He's like, "Yes, I made a horrible mistake. I thought this gentleman was someone that was not representing the insurance company for the bank, and it was completely my mistake. Um, and I'm so sorry to have wasted your time." Um, so the whole staff is supporting for the first time. They're all supporting Peter Cushing's character, and they're playing along with it because they realize the stakes. Um, at this point, they've convinced the officer that it was just a big, stupid mistake. The officers are like, "Well, I guess I could see how something this might possibly happen. I'm not going to lie; it's a bit of an inconvenience." And my boss And then the inspector will not be happy about this because he's at this moment looking into it further. Um, he's like, but mix-ups do happen, mistakes happen. I'll go back to the main office and just explain everything. So he's just about to walk out the door, this police officer, and in walks the inspector. The inspector walks in, and not only does he walk in and introduce himself, but he also has Andre Morell's character, Mr. Colonel Gore Hepburn. And he's like, I found this man. And he's like, what's this I hear about a mistake? And this is when Harry Fordyce, our bank manager by Mr. Peter Cushing, it's like, oh yes, yes, it was just simply a mistake. That's Mr. Uh, Colonel Gore Hepburn. He's with the insurance company, and he was here to do an audit on the bank and just check our security and make sure everything was running smoothly. And he's like, are you sure about that? Because if that's the case, how come when I searched him, I found all these bags with money? So basically, our inspector, our detective, is calling out Peter Cushing's character, Mr. Harry Fordyce. He's like, listen, the jig is up. I'm calling you out of your bullshit. And he's like, he couldn't have done this by himself. Uh, and that's when Colonel Gore Hepburn, Mr. Andre Morell, is like, yes, I couldn't have done it by myself. I must have had some help. Right, Harry? So he's implicating Harry in the crime, effectively. From there, basically, we get Harry to finally break down because at first he's trying to sell the ruse because he still thinks his wife and son are in danger. So he's trying to sell the ruse of Andre Morell, Colonel Gore Hepburn's character. He's trying to sell the ruse of him being legit. But once the inspector shows him the bags full of money, he finally breaks down, super upset, and he's like, "Listen, guys, this guy has my wife and child, and he said if I didn't help him rob this bank, he was going to kill them." So effectively, he admits, like, yeah, I helped the guy, but that's because I had no other choice. Um, so from there, the inspector says, okay, well, you have to come with me immediately. We're going down to the station and we're going to sort this whole mess out. Um, on the way out, we have a touching moment with Peter Cushing's character and his assistant bank manager, Pearson. And basically, he's like, listen, I need you to close up in here. Um, thank you for your help. I don't know how long I'm going to be gone for. I don't know if I'm going to be arrested or not or implicated in anything. And then he looks over at the inspector, and the inspector is kind of like, listen, I get it. You'll be gone for a couple hours while we sort this out. But we realize at this point that he's not going to be going to jail. He probably has a lot of questions to answer, but he's not going to jail. One other quick thing, guys, because I completely forgot it because my brain is scrambled today. They actually do call um, Peter Cushing's house, and of course, his wife answers. His kid's okay. We realize Andre Morell, Mr. Colonel Gore Hepburn, pulled the ultimate ruse and successfully got away with it. And effectively, he's been conning him this whole time. There was no accomplice, and he's just been working them. Apparently he made a recording, uh, and the voices sounded very similar, but it worked. But anyway, so yeah, he finds out from the inspector that he's not going to go to jail for this, and but he does have a lot of questions to answer. This is not a just simple walk away and here's the money back, and that's just not the way legal proceedings go. Before he leaves, Cushing's character Harry, he tells Pearson, he's like, listen, I want to thank you for what you've done. and I will see you tonight at the holiday party. Um, and basically, from there, the film ends. Now, I apologize, guys. I'm trying to give you, like I said, a synopsis. Yeah, I'm giving you spoilers, but I'm trying not to go into complete detail. But I'm also still trying to give you some detail. Um, so, why does this film connect with me? For me, the film connects because you have a thriller. Um, you have a Christmas theme, takes place around the holidays. You have some really great acting. Um, and there's a really cool character arc because to tie into like the whole idea of Christmas for me, the way I, excuse me, guys, get a sip of water. Here. The way I connect with the film most is from a story perspective. Is I kind of look at the Peter Cushing character, and I really see him as like an Ebenezer Scrooge. He has the characteristics of someone that whose whole life is centered around his professional life, being Mr. Strict and Mr. Professional, and having this very stringent, strict attitude towards everything. He's not liked by anybody in his staff. He's very uptight, but he has this whole character arc. And as you see him going through the tension of realizing that his wife and family life is in jeopardy, or at least that's what we think as the audience, you see him as a human being and not just this dictator of this bank office. And as the film progresses, we see him just like in A Christmas Carol with Ebenezer Scrooge. We see his personality change from that of the Ebenezer Scrooge, like in the beginning of Christmas Carol, and in the end, he becomes more human. And I think throughout this whole traumatic event that he's put through, he realizes that his staff members are humans too. And even someone like Pearson, who in the beginning of the film he didn't agree with, like, for example, in his mind, covering up being short in a bank till or not having sharpened pencils, little stupid things like that. He sees him as a human being. This because everybody in this bank covered for him. Pearson initially called the police because he realized this guy, this Colonel Gore Hepburn, was not the real Colonel Gore Hepburn. But when he realized that Peter Cushing's wife and child's life were in jeopardy, him and the rest of the employees, they all played along with it because they knew the stakes. So throughout the film, you see, like I said, you see Peter Cushing's character evolve um, and become more human in the sense that, these people care about him enough to where they're going to vouch for him and they're going to play along with his lie, even though they could probably get in trouble for supporting the lie. They're playing along with it. And I think by the end of the film, we see Peter Cushing's character realize, hey, listen, these people, yeah, you have to run a professional business. It's a bank here. And sometimes you have to nitpick little things, but they're good people and they care. And I think he sees the value in them. And I think he sees the value in just maybe lightening up a little bit and becoming a better person, um, and realizing the value in other people. You know what I mean? Um, so I think there's a real evolution in his character from the beginning of the film to the end of the film, which is something you might not always see in a little crime thriller. Usually when you get a little crime thriller, the central focus is the crime and how it goes down, how it all plays out, and that is very important. And I didn't go into every specific detail because, like I said, I'm not trying to give you a beat per beat script breakdown. I'm doing more of a, I'm not doing a summary, but like I said, I'm focusing on the general idea of what the film's about. But yeah, I think the evolution of his character is very interesting. So that's one of the things I would say I really connected to with this film. Besides the evolution of his character, there is the tension between him and Andre Morel, playing this Colonel Gore Hepburn character. Um, it's fantastic. The dialogue is really well written. Um, the film is very beautifully directed. They've got some really great shots. Um, the film was edited very well. And the cast, everybody in the cast is great. I mean, for the most part, like I said, it's Cushing, Andre Morel, and Richard Vernon playing Pearson. Those are the three main components. But even the supporting staff uh, in the film, the supporting characters, they don't have a lot to work with. But the scenes that they're given, they really chew on the scenery and they just just help enhance the overall film. So this one's impressive, guys. It really works as a character piece, a character study on characters, but it also really fantastically works as a great crime thriller. And even back then, 37,000 pounds was not a lot, guys. Um, and it was shot well. My only disappointment walking away from this film is when I look at Quentin Lawrence. Like I said earlier, he has our director has a pretty decent resume with television, but I would have liked to seen the guy do more films. And I'm not going to lie, I'm very curious to check out the handful of films that he has done because this one, well, I wouldn't say it's a masterpiece. It's a pretty damn good film, guys. So I would definitely recommend this one, guys. Um, I think you don't get much better. And I think for a lot of people, when they think of Peter Cushing, for example, I think, let's face it, the reality is he's one of those guys that can become anything. He really is a character actor primarily when I think of him, but he shows obviously he can be a lead actor. He's just a chameleon, guys. The guy is just absolutely incredible, and this is just another showcase for his talents, as well as, like I said, Andrew Morel and Richard Vernon and the rest of the cast. Everybody really comes together and they put together just a really solid film that I can't say enough about. So I give this one, guys, the highest recommendation. Definitely check it out. It's pretty much available on YouTube. You can watch the full movie. I think it's available on maybe Tubi and possibly Freevee, so you can see it. Excuse me, guys. You can see it in definitely several places. So check it out. Um, you can also buy a physical copy. I know Indicator Films put out a beautiful Blu-ray with a bunch of extra features, including a commentary. There's a US cut of the film, a UK cut of the film, bunch of cool stuff like that. So that wraps up today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And like I said, tell me what you guys think. Like I said, I'm a little off today, guys. It's been such a rough month at work and stuff. But running me dragging again, you guys, with Christmas time. It's just been super busy. And I got up extra early this morning just so I could record this episode because I wanted to get it out there for you guys. But tell me what you think. Um, tell me if you like the way I went about things today, or if you like the way I did it in the past with the script breakdown. Or if you have any other thoughts you care to share. Like I said, you can reach me at now for something different one at gmail.com altogether, one word. Like I said, you can also reach, excuse me, reach out to me on Facebook through Facebook Messenger. Um, and that wraps it up, guys. I hope you enjoyed the show. Like I said, this Sunday, I'll be talking 8 Million Ways That I, as part of our Spotlight series with Justin and Jose. So some shout outs to people you should be listening to, guys. You should be listening to Troy and Brad over at Not a Bomb. Not a Bomb does films that were either critical failures or commercial failures, and they take a reevaluation of those films and tell you whether they think you should give these films another shot. These guys are awesome, and I highly recommend their podcast. They're always putting out great material. Last week they released Furioso Road, the latest Mad Max installment. And they had the special guest of Mr. Kevin Matthews from Raiders of the Podcast. Kevin's a great guy. He's had me on his show. And Dave Gray from Raiders of the Podcast was also kind enough show up on my last episode. So it's good to see those guys get out there and do stuff like show up on Not a Bomb or Dave coming on here and talk with me. So that brings me to Raiders the Podcast. Raiders the Podcast is another great podcast you guys should be listening to. Raiders the Podcast is with my like I said, my buddy Kevin Matthews, Dave Gray. We got Tyler Hosley and Craig. Each week, these guys take a look at two different films and they determine which one is the victor of the two, which one is the best of these two choices. And these guys always pick interesting films. And what's cool is they also have a wide range of films they pick, which is awesome because I love being exposed to films that I haven't heard of before. And I also love the idea of talking about two films. I give them a lot of credit because two films, that's a tough format to do. Even when you have four people, it's a tough to take on four films. So definitely check out Rate of the Podcast, another great podcast. I have to give a shout out to The Gentleman's Guide to Midnight Cinema with Will and Sam. Will and Sam have been doing The Gentleman's Guide to Midnight Cinema for many, many years. They have a great Facebook page as well, and they're a constant source of inspiration because, again, these are another one of those podcasts where they pick really interesting and unique films. Sometimes it's a newer film, sometimes it's an older film. But Will and Sam have just put out a really fantastic podcast and one that I highly, highly recommend. So check out The Gentleman's Guide to Midnight Cinema. That brings me up to Watch Skip Plus with Jose. Um, Now, Jose was doing that show with Alex, his co-host. The latest update, from what I understand, is unfortunately Alex has stepped away from the show, which is unfortunate because Alex is a great guy, and I believe they have great chemistry. So Jose is taking a little bit of a break, and then I believe the game plan, from what I understood, was he's going to probably bring the show back sometime in January with a new co-host, yet to be announced. But in the meantime, you can go ahead and check out their back catalog because they have a slew of films that they have talked about. Um, and it's a fantastic show. And I am in anticipation waiting for them to start back up again because uh, Jose just is a unique voice in the world of film review. He is such a talent and so thorough. I'm always so excited to have him on, as well as Justin, of course. And I know whatever incarnation of Watch Skip Plus comes next, it will be fantastic because it always is. So check out Watch Skip Plus. I know their most recent episode, I think, was 2 weeks ago, where they discussed the musical Wicked, which just came out in theaters a couple weeks ago. So check that out. Um, Finally, I will talk about Caliber 9 from Outer Space. Caliber 9 from Outer Space is with Rob and Joe. These guys are absolutely amazing, and I consider them good buddies. They were kind enough to have me on the show back in August, and we talked about Mother's Day and Father's Day. And then about a month or so later, they came on my show, and we talked about Little Shop of Horrors, and they were great guests. These guys put out a show every week, and what's interesting about these guys is they have their A film and they have their B film. So it's almost like going to the drive-in, guys. It's a great little format. And again, this is one of these podcasts where they pick really unique films, and they really do a really nice job of pairing films that go together quite well, which is another really good thing. Because when you're doing two films, it's great if you have two films that go together well and that complement each other. They do a lot of themes and stuff like that. Um, and again, just another great podcast. So check those guys out, guys. Caliber 9 from Outer Space with Rob and Joe. And that's it for now, guys. That wraps up the episode. Um, Pardon me for my cough, guys. Like I said, unfortunately, one of the disadvantages of working at a school is you're coming constant contact with little germ factories. These little kids are constantly making me sick, and unfortunately, I think I'm getting a damn cold. But I'm fighting it, and I'm here. And like I said, I look forward to talking to everybody on Sunday. for the next episode. So I hope you guys have a great week, and I will talk to you very soon.